Good morning, NIO fam. It's Laser here with another weekend video analysis, this time coming out on a Saturday morning. I actually thought about doing this video on a Friday night, but I was way too tired and I just couldn't do it. I didn't want to kind of be low energy. And even now I just woke up. I just finished my coffee. I definitely have way more energy than I did last night. And I felt it was only fair if I did it on a Saturday morning. So next week, I'll try and get that out on a Friday night. If some of you were disappointed and were expecting that, I apologize. And for anyone that's new here and just joining in, we drop one of these videos once per week. It's usually Saturday morning, sometimes the Friday night. And of course, I will say this. I say this on all of my videos. If you're making a big financial decision, please do your own research and your own due diligence. I'm just a guy who loves the stock and likes to share where I see the stock price of NIO going. Now, it's not just NIO that we're going to look at today. We are going to look at BABA, JD, Baidu, and we'll take a look at KWeb. And then we will look at the US dollar, which is the Dixie, and then we'll look at the Seng Index. And I'll try and do my best here. This is my first time recording them in the past before I've had technical difficulties, so I'm hoping I don't actually have to do that. And before I begin, so I'm not like, you can hear me sniffing my nose, I'm just going to quickly move to the side here and blow my nose, actually. All right. I apologize, but I wanted to just make sure I'm good to go. I've had some people like, why do you have to always sniff your nose? I mean, I'm sorry. I'm just out here. I'm just a regular guy here trying to just talk and share my thoughts. So before we begin, we like to start off with the life in the Laser and share a little bit as to what is going on in the life of Laser. And truthfully, I would say for this particular week, what has been kind of going on in my life is I've just been, and I'm sure this is probably the case for most of the world, is I've been following the politics and the news and the war at a exhausting level. Like I'm exhausted from the news and I'm hearing about it and the war with Iran and USA. I find myself talking about it in my Discord group with a lot of people. I find myself talking about it with friends and family members. It's just a topic that's tough to kind of get around. And I figured let's just bring it up. I can share my opinion on it. And I say that very with like the emphasis that it's my opinion. And I think I've shared this before, but I'll say it again. In a war, and we all know this, there's no winners. It's all losers. War, it needs to be brought to the negotiation table. No matter what, no matter who was wrong or right, if the fighting continues, everyone loses. Everybody's losing. Actually, right now, the global economy is losing. And as much as you want to paint a story that Iran is winning this war, it's not a free war. It's costing them. There's sacrifices that are being made and they're being lost. So in essence, even if you win a war, you lose the war. You lose. What are you gaining? It's not worth it. It's never worth a war because especially a war like this where everybody's impacted. But my general opinion is this because it seems like there's a growing consensus once again, and as it was last week, that Monday is going to be a black market Monday, and we're going to see the biggest crash of our lifetimes. And you go on Twitter, and everybody, and I shouldn't say everybody, but the vast majority of them are like, yep, it's over. It's going to go down. There's just no way. There's no way and ifs or buts. This is actually going to resolve. This is going to escalate. Oil's going to 150 and 200. This war will go forever. And, Trump made a grave mistake and it's over. Just forget about it. There's nothing he can do. Everybody has like that conviction level of like 100%. That confidence of one. And they did last week too. People are like, it's gonna be nuclear bombs, and of course, nothing happened. Actually, we kind of lifted and we bounced on Monday. The broad market, and my opinion is still the same. I think with this war, um, I've here's my opinion. Trump keeps coming out, and I never really get political, but you know what? I want to give my opinion. Trump comes out and he's announcing, and the White House is announcing that they have negotiations all the time. And then the IRGC from Iran comes out and says, no, there's nobody. There's nobody negotiating with USA. What are they talking about? And they release the cartoon videos. Perhaps, maybe, and I'm just playing devil's advocate, and I think there's been some news studies, is that Trump may be talking to a different party in Iran that he is potentially thinking would be the future regime, because that was his plan all along, was to have a regime change. The regime didn't change; they stayed in power, and the conversations that he's happening could be with the equivalent of, imagine if the roles were reversed and Iran wanted to talk to somebody in USA, and USA is Republican government, but imagine Iran was talking to somebody from the Democratic Party, okay, the opposing party, and Iran says, no, we have our sources, and we come out and say, no, you're not talking to any of us, but they are talking to a Barack Obama or a Hillary Clinton, or a Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or whoever's leading the Democratic Party. My thinking is that Trump is talking to an opposing party. Iran isn't just a single state unified country. I imagine there's an opposing view party, and that's who I imagine Trump is talking to. And these are the people who are saying, yeah, we do want to make a deal. And think about it for just a second. If you go and talk to, if you look at USA, I would say there's a vast majority of people who are on the opposing side who don't support, maybe Trump's political views, don't agree with this war. They want out of this war, and we think we shouldn't have any presence there. We want out. But that doesn't necessarily represent the party's interest and party's view, even though that's what they want. There's just conflicting views, and I do think that there are parties in Iran that do want to make a deal, who does want to keep a war going. Like the end picture is you want to kind of make a deal happen. That's the only way that, why does Iran want to continuously risk any major infrastructure to get damaged? Why should they want any civilians to be at risk? Why should USA want to risk soldiers? Why should USA? And it's a mutual interest of the entire world that, peace and negotiations need to be made. And I'm confident that eventually they will find a middle ground. There needs to be somebody needs to give. They need to make a middle ground because it's costing everybody way too much. The whole world, it's costing too much. And my opinion is that is exactly how it will end, is that there will be, and I remain optimistic, that there will be a deal that will come out of this. And we'll walk out of this and it'll be a distant past. I don't anticipate an apocalyptic end of the world scenario. I can't. I don't look at a cup of water and look at it half empty, and I think a lot of people do. Anyways, that's kind of my this is my politics and my opinion regarding the situation in Iran. I apologize. I didn't mean to get political. It's just that's what's consumed my life, is just talking about that, talking about the Iran and USA war, and there you have it. Those are my opinions. I believe the negotiations need to happen. The war needs to stop, and there needs to be meeting in the middle. No ends, ifs, ands, or buts. That has to happen. There's no winners in war, and we know that. Everybody knows that. Okay. enough about my story and my opinions. If I offended any of you, I apologize. That's not my intention. I believe everybody has the free will and ability to share their own opinion. When it gets to politics, people get very, very heated. If you enjoyed kind of that kind of little segment and you want to kind of participate or share your own piece, feel free in the comment section below. Let me know what your thoughts are. And of course, if you want to kind of have a conversation with the NIO community, feel free to join the free Discord. The link will be in the description below. You guys are all invited. I invite you guys all. We have a geopolitics world news channel where we do talk about actively on the war, and we try and follow that as well. But you guys came here for NIO. And that's where I'm going to actually try and share where I see the stock price of NIO going. All right, NIO. Sorry, my throat is getting a little... need to clear my throat. I should grab a glass of water or something. Oh, God. What the heck? There's the sniffling. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting sick. All right. Let's try and just power through this video here. Let's go ahead and start with the current price action. Okay. And let's talk about the sentiment as well. By the way, if you missed my tweet, I said I tweeted with like a Game of Thrones tweet, and I said it's ready. Yeah, I got that little bit. I'm a little bit premature, and let me tell you why I think it doesn't matter, and I think we're actually still ready. But I'll get into the details actually. So I'm very, very excited going into next week, as I always am, specifically on NIO. I don't think it's over, and I think you got a lot of people like, oh my God, why is NIO coming down? I mean, like, it's just the way it works. Jeez, I really should grab a glass of water. In fact, I think I'm going to do... No. I'm not going to grab a glass of water. I'm going to try and power through. Otherwise, I'm going to... Let's try and power through this. Okay. Fibonacci. All right. We have some important levels here. Notice that we made a move. I'm just going to refresh here from March before earnings leading up to that. It went from 441 up to 621, which was a nice move. It was a 40% move. We've come down, tested the 0.382, which was 545, and that's where we got a nice bounce. And later this week, we ended up breaking below that line and came down to almost, we haven't tested 524, but I always knew that was in the cards. These are healthy levels. Okay. They are healthy levels. I mean, technically, I mean, you could always leave this on the these on the table, but to be honest, we haven't even seen how it reacted on 524. And I do believe there's there is confluence here, because if you look, this was kind of like a big level right here. And so we're kind of just coming down, I believe, in back testing that. Okay. I want to say one more thing. And this is in regards to the current narrative. The narrative is always comes after the price, but the price is coming down. And it's like, it's World War III. Some people are like, it's World War III. Markets are going to crash. They're going to go down and Okay. Take the narrative completely. I don't want to hear about any narrative. And I don't say that in an offensive way. I say that so I can direct your attention towards something else. If you were to pretend there is no narrative and it's just a price, and how would we compare, for example, a move like this to a move like this without looking at news? Objectively, without using news to justify the price. It's broke the 382. It's slightly below. It's broke slightly. Actually, it did bounce off the 382. Does anyone remember what the news was when we came down here? Or how about over here before we actually pushed higher? 382 even tagged the golden pocket. still pushed higher. And I can keep doing this over and over and over and finding spots. What was the news? The stock price will always find ways to come up and come down, and that's part of the structure. And a lot of people tend to just forget that. Oh, well, it's going down just because of, it's because of, and they think of a reason. And sometimes the reason you don't need a reason for why stock price comes down. Sometimes stock prices come down because the buyers are just too tired and it just needs to come back down and reset before it kind of goes back higher. That's just the way it works. Now, I don't want to completely alienate anybody who believes that fundamentals and world geopolitics and news and everything matters. Like if the markets are selling off, yes, it does. It absolutely, I can't say it doesn't matter. But at some point in time, whatever the reason may be, there's always going to be a reason for something to come down and always going to be a reason for something to go up. But same thing for the market. There's going to be always a reason for the market to come down and for it to come up. That narrative doesn't necessarily, in my opinion, matter all that much in the grand scheme of things. So if we were to analyze the velocity, there's been some changes actually here because I was trying to watch this mirror previous 100% rallies, and so far it's not really doing that. So if I were to go and draw out this green line here, I just draw out a flat green line on our velocity. We had 100. There was a 100% rally over here. There was a 100% rally that happened 2 years. This was 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and 1 year ago. Those are all the 100% rallies. Okay. And all three of those ones gave you a higher low above this green line. Now, we broke below this green line, but the context here does matter because when you look at the overall context, this entire move, by the way, from earnings happened from a lower low. Right. If you notice here, this was the lower low right here. And this was the, higher high. And what we're looking for continuation is within this range. We're looking for the higher low. Now we had such a large move. It made this whole setup very robust. And so the chance of us getting a higher low is very, very high. Very, very high. We just needed some sort of reversal to kind of come in play. And once that reversal comes in, you're likely to see that higher low come in, which will give us continuation. I do believe that. Now, that's just one time frame, which is the 24-hour picture. It doesn't really do its picture. It's basically measuring this as one move down. This move was up, and it's measuring it down like that. And what we're waiting for is that, like, that's how it would look like on the velocity up, down, and you would get that continuation. Now, the 4 hours does dive in and give you a little bit of a better picture, a better story here. Now, if we take a look here on the 4 hour, we did end the 4 hours on a lower low. So in essence, our 4 hour velocity, after making higher highs over here, made lower lows, lower highs, and lower lows, which is something you see when the price is resetting. And when the resetting is over, it will present itself in this very, very sequence that I'm watching for. The sequence is simple. Now, if we were to pretend the bottom is in, and I think it is, and we get an impulsive move on Monday where it comes up and it comes back down, this is another lower high, but the sequence that I'm looking for is the higher low. It's essentially this. This is the sequence I'm looking for. And that would signal that we've hit our bottom. And so if we could get that on Monday, almost like an inverted head and shoulders, I think we can actually see that continuation up towards our next leg higher. From a Fibonacci perspective, if I were to measure from the bottom of this move to the top, and I drag it down, and let's pretend the bottom's in here. At what was the low? It was 530, 529. The measured move, and the way it works is it takes this distance right here, and it basically adds that exact same distance. Here, let's hit clone. You see the circle I drew here? It takes that, and that's how it measures it. It measures this. You get the retracement, and then an equal move. Now, it doesn't have to be an equal distance. You can actually see a larger move here. Up into 826, 932. I mean, like, look at that, $13. I do think there will be something that's going to come in the pipeline that will shift the narrative. And the price, and usually you see the price first shift, and then the narrative comes after. Maybe it's another rating upgrade. And I think there's been some of those in the news lately. If you take a look, I think JPM came out. I don't know how long. Was it this week? When did JPM come out and say we're going to upgrade the price target? I think JPM was one of them that were bearish. I don't know how far back I have to go. Raise to buy, HSBC. It didn't show up in the news here, but I know I remember seeing it. Another thing. Take a look at this entire pattern here. Doesn't it look a little all too familiar? Like what? That is scary. Okay. Look at this. And that's a healthy price action that you would want before the following leg. And to me, that's exactly what it looks like. Okay. What do we have here? Look. We had the bounce. And on the Vosti, we had the bounce. It came lower, broke below the midline, as it did right over here. Gave you another bounce. And then it needed to come back down again. And it actually just took the low out and then finally went up. So we're basically coiling here. It's not capitulation. It's not like selling off. Let's see. Do I have a little more coffee? Jeez. I'm feeling a little bit with a scratchy throat. I apologize. But I'm going to keep going here. I'm not done. The video's not done. I just apologize here. All right. So next week, I do think that we're going to actually see this move play out. Now, I want to point out to you guys here something important. That while it built out this bull flag, it was ready to go once it broke above the 200. I mean, it was ready to go actually at the bottom, but your confirmation happened above the 200-day moving average. And you'll notice something is that it made a higher low right over here. The 200-day moving average made a higher low. That move happened off a higher high. All right. Let's review. Our 200-day moving average has made a higher high. And as it comes down and it forms its bottom, it has the opportunity to make that higher low. And so I'm going to go and say that this is what I believe is currently playing out. And we're going to have to now, if we go also into the and I should have done this the first time frame, but we're going to go into the weekly really quickly. I want to point out one more thing, which is the volume. If this were the top right over here, shouldn't we have seen more volume, like capitulation volume? And shouldn't we actually have seen even more volume? Like, if that was the case, shouldn't we actually see people like run for the hills? But what I see here is a lot of interest right there on a lot of volume, 385 million, and basically half that amount almost, and even less the following week. And the candle was only 2% red this time. The first week was 7, second week was 2, and we're talking it's declining. And that's exactly what you want to see on a continuation rally. This is beautiful from a volume perspective. And now that I have the weekly velocity pulled up, we'll just quickly just touch point that we've broke back above the midline. Completely beautiful. You love to see that. Back above the midline here, the weekly is looking super strong. And, you know, if this thing draws out a little bit longer, let me see. I suspect it's going to play out in a similar fashion that we saw over here. Kind of like that bull flag here. So there's our 4. Now we go to our 1 hour. 1 hour kind of dives in a little bit further. And you'll see here that it's taken out the velocity on the lows here. So it made a new low here. Oh, did it not make a new low? Oh, okay. It didn't make a new low. Well, that's a nice, encouraging sign. And I'm sure some of you guys know what that is and what that is. And so when you see this, where is it? You see something like that, like where it's making higher lows, but the price is making lower lows. In the moment, it can sometimes feel worse, but it wasn't from a velocity perspective. It actually made a higher low relative to the previous low. And that's a sign that some of the sellers are slowing down. Now, I very rarely go into the 5 minutes, but sometimes the 5 minutes really does break down some of the behavior. Because just like when we were topping, by the way, and I'm going to go back to when we topped on this short-term move towards 620. And I talked about this in our Discord. I don't usually go into the 5 minutes, but you would notice that just like how as it was pushing higher, our velocity was making lower highs. It wasn't actually able to do. There wasn't as much enthusiasm behind each of those moves. And now we're kind of in the same boat now, because as we're pushing lower here, specifically this last most recent leg from 540 down to 340, you'll notice we're actually pushing higher. So we're building higher lows and bullish divergences, and so sellers are getting tapped out. And that is not something that you would see if, you know, near a, you know, if we're expecting more downs. That's usually something that you would want to see near top. Now, does it mean that these lows will be the bottom will be in, and that's it? I can't say that for absolutely certain, but what I could say is sellers are slowing down. It's a very encouraging thing to see. And I'm just trying to get some hints here into the price. Take a look at this. This also paints an interesting story. We have higher lows forming on the 30 minutes. Our 200-day moving average has a chance to make a higher low here, it could do something really, really interesting next week. Very, very interesting, I think, next week. Given, the current market conditions as to where things are. Maybe today we'll look at the SPY, because some people are like watching the SPY. They're worried for a market crash. I'll give my comments on that as we go through this. But my opinion next week is we are following in a similar fashion, similar pattern that we saw play out last year. And using Fibonacci, we can see it came up and tested literally the 0.8. But the golden pocket is usually your sign. 786 is strength. So if I did that next week, that would put us around 580, 587, around that zone. And it would look something like this. And what that would be, by the way, on the 4 hours, that would be your impulsive move, signaling like a bottom. It would be essentially this. It would be this move. You get that nice big move. And then it would come down on lower velocity. And you would get something like this. Perhaps it builds out an inverted head and shoulders here. And away you go. All the way to 7+ towards 8 on the next leg. That's what I think is going to happen for NIO going into next week. And there's some encouraging signs that I'm seeing here on the smaller time frames that we're actually close or we're very near a bottom, actually, when it comes to the price action on NIO. BABA, I'll come back to NIO at the end here, but BABA, I'll quickly review it. 24 hours. Oh, look at that. I don't know if you guys see what I see, but I see it. I saw it immediately. BABA has a bullish divergence on the 24 hours. That is not something to mess around with. Notice the low here. Notice the price making lower lows. Notice the velocity making higher lows. Bullish. That's very bullish. Sellers are slowing down. They're not able to push it up as much. The last time it got a bullish divergence was right over here. And the following result was, a nice bounce and relief bounce, actually, that happened on BABA. Now, I'm not saying this time it's going to be really, I think BABA is due for a big move, and I think most of China is, but this is awesome. Let's see if JD has that same look. Wow. JD, I guess I wasn't really paying too much attention, had a tremendous day. Take a look at this. JD is on fire, back almost up to 30. So I know a lot of people actually are holding JD. And it looks strong. Very, very strong. Look at that. Now, if you're in JD, by the way, from top to bottom, I would watch these Fibonacci levels. It gave you a rejection off 29.98, but your golden pocket, which is where I thought it might go towards, is 31.32. Doesn't necessarily mean that's the cap of it, because you've got 35 and 33. But it's looking good from a 24 hours perspective. While you don't have the bullish divergence that BABA had, it's breaking back up above the midline, and it made a higher low, and it retested. I mean, if you just look at this chart, it just makes sense. Look what it did. I don't even need anything. The chart answers it all for you. Broke down, broke back up, it retested, off it goes. It tested the midline, and you want it to come back up in here and retest resistance, which is going to be right around 32. I'm not going to do a deep dive here for JD. It looks good. Let's see. Well, let's just look at 4 hours. 4 hours looking good. Very good. Look at that volume. Wow. Look at that volume on JD. Massive volume on the top, and it's pulling back on low volume. So it's looking like it wants continuation, and it's going to push even higher. Beautiful. 2 and 1. Okay. Watching that. Yeah, that's not bad. It's actually a decent look. Baidu. Let's see if Baidu has something good to share on the 24-hour. It doesn't. Not like Baba does. Baidu's the worst now performing here at the moment because it made a lower low. It's weird that they're not as all in sync here. So we have a lower low here. It didn't get that same bullish divergence that Baba did. So the velocity agrees with the price that the sellers they're not quite yet done, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're not going to get a bounce either on Baidu. You don't just go down in a straight line. 4 hours ended on a lower low. It's in an interesting spot. I think Baidu is in a tough spot at the moment on the 24 hours. It's going to need a lot of work here. If we were to pretend the bottom's in, and it might be because I can see all the Chinese bouncing. And you can already see it. There's your left shoulder. If that's your bottom, you would want to see that bounce. Potentially, you would get an impulsive bounce to 130 or 142. And then it would come down. And that would look like something like this. And that's the kind of bottom that you would kind of want it to form if it were to push and give you like a higher move. KWeb has a bullish divergence. That's significant, you guys. That's the same bullish divergence that we saw on Baidu. China's heating up, you guys. This is not something to mess around with. Okay, that's beautiful. Like there's going to be a move that's actually had this. You don't see these bullish divergences very often. And when they do come, you take them very seriously. That's fantastic. The US dollar has been heating up like crazy. However, and I've been following this trend line for a while. How I said it's not often that you would see it. And it did. It actually, if it tested that trend, did it touch it? I thought it didn't the last time I did it. No, it didn't. So it didn't. And it actually did something. The velocity made a lower low here on the 24 hours. Yes, it bounced. But in order for it to get continuation, you want it to take out this previous highs. And if it doesn't, if we're just getting a slow trickle, and maybe it just takes out the high, but it does so slowly, like not fast enough, our velocity is going to make a bearish divergence here, which is a major topping sign. It actually did it right. The last time it did that was right over here. That was a lower high on the velocity, but the price made a higher high. And if it does something like that, that'll kickstart this big move down. So I don't know if it's policy or something or de-escalation, but there's going to be something where you're going to see that US dollar come down. I believe so. I'm optimistic regarding that outlook on the whole stock market as a whole. I think like the fear is overblown. That's just my opinion. I'm very bullish on the stock market. I think there's too much of a consensus across the vast majority of everybody that thinks that it's over. It's the end of the world. I don't think so. And I think we're going to actually see a lot of people, just like we saw last year in April, being scared to kind of, participate, get upset if they see a V-shaped bounce. Like if there's ever a time to see a V-shaped bounce on the market, I mean, like if something were to come out of the U.S. administration between the Iran and USA war, and I imagine that's what they're going to work towards. If something happens, that is going to be like the biggest and sharpest and most largest V-shaped bounce across the market. And I don't think that's being priced in. Everybody's kind of, and sorry, we're circling back to the beginning of my video a bit here because I think it's relevant for the narratives. Everybody's saying, writing off Trump and the U.S. administration, saying, who are they talking to? They're not talking to nobody. And again, I'm playing devil's advocate here, and I like to always think with an open mind here that they are talking to somebody, but it's not the people that are in charge of the IRGC. They're talking to maybe someone that's kind of on the opposing party, and from their perspective, they do want, the opposing party would like to make a deal, but they're not in power. So I mean, it doesn't really, and then there's complications with reaching out to the right party. And I'm not going to defend any side. I know that in order for the global economy and for all of us and for all of the world to actually move forward, there needs to be a negotiation. You have to make peace. Everybody's pushing for it. Russia's even pushing for it. When Russia's starting to push for peace, you just know, like, okay, it's time to stop attacking each other and it's time to actually form peace. Has to happen, as messy as it is. And if something like that happens, you know, that could easily drop the price of oil, which, by the way, has been, like, everyone's like, oil, like crude oil is going up. It's back over $100 a barrel. Oh my God. Everyone's kind of screaming end of the world. But if you were to take a look here, what's happening, it's kind of right in this zone here. If it doesn't explode high, and everybody is like so sure of it, oil is going to 150, oil is going to 200, and everyone's just calling for it. And that's how I'm just calling bullshit. I'm going to go out and say that's bullshit. It ain't going to happen. That's what I believe. That's my opinion. I'm allowed to have my opinion. I don't think it's going to happen. I think, and if you just look at the velocity, by the way, this is the crude futures that I use to track the price of oil. For me, I'm seeing some volume dying down here. Do we see anything from a velocity perspective here? Well, yeah, it did push higher. It did broke above the 200 movement. We might see one last. It does have a lot of momentum to it. It does look good if you're a bull on oil. However, at some point in time, there's going to be a de-escalation. There has to be. And I think this is not going to stay up here because it's really bad with the oil kind of all the way up here. We all know that oil doesn't need to be this high, and we want to see oil come back down for the whole economy. That is something that everybody, I think, is rooting for and can agree on. Nobody wants the high oil prices across the world. It's bad for the world. So yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it could be putting in a big bearish divergence here. You could possibly get the highs taken out, swept out at 120. Maybe you get that peak fear, and then it kind of comes back down. You get that bearish divergence, something like this, like a topping motion that you saw near the end of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and things kind of, cooled off. You get that double top. Something along those lines. I don't know. I don't want to predict it. This is not really part of my analysis, but I figured I'd share it. Seng Index. Okay. What is this scribble here? I think I drew that from the last time I did this video. So let's just erase this. Where are we on the US, sir? So we are in a point, by the way. When I look at the Hang Seng Index, we are like below this blue line, and that's usually where you would see the the country, China, decide to do intervention. Like it's broken below this line. And I think there's a opportunity here. You can see also China, even on the 1 hour, you can see it's actually we'll go to the 24. So 24 hour is interesting. It made a lower low here. It's not the best look on the 24 because it's signaling that low that we got right over here. Sellers came with force there on the 4 hours. Yeah, so there could still be some more selling on China, which is interesting because we saw the bullish divergence on BABA. We saw JD performing really well. We saw KWeb giving you the bullish divergence, actually. So it's an interesting spot, but I don't actually like necessarily where I see things on the Seng Index yet. But it is productive because so far the price is making a higher low. Our 200 moving average is making higher lows. It's consolidating in this zone here. You do really want to see it break back above here. This is the zone. It needs to get back above 25,400 for me to start getting more confident. I want to see something like this happen. And if we don't get that, well, I mean, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. And I think there's a good chance that we can see that. I'm very hopeful for that. 24 hours does look kind of grim, though, with the lower low. I don't like that, but it's okay. It looks like it's curling and it's working towards its full impulsive move. We can see the 4 hours here hasn't actually. Now, if I were to erase, I'm just going to erase all the drawing. I don't want to erase all of them. If I were to go here and look, our 4 hour time frame, this whole move down, it hasn't given us a move above the 200 moving average. So even this move that you saw here, that wasn't if there was going to be relief bounce, there's way more. The relief bounce actually happens above the 200 moving average. So there's no move that actually gotten missed. And when I go dive down to the 1 hour, it looks to be building towards that. So there will be a much more bigger move, bigger bounce. And I think that's what will break the Chinese market higher. My bias is I'm very bullish. I know there's a lot of fear, and that's really hard to see right now, but I am quite bullish actually on the market, especially given I think the fear and greed index, which is a 1 to 100 scale, is sitting at like a 10 out of 100, which is like extremely low. It might even be an 8. I'm not 100% sure. It's either 8 or a 10, which is very low. The last time the fear and greed index got that low, we were right at the bottom. Right at the bottom. So a lot of people are scared, and it's at a very interesting spot here. What am I missing? Let's circle back to NIO again. Again, when it comes to NIO has been performing better than most of the market here. And when I even just pull up the Seng Index, you can just see it on this chart. I'll just move NIO higher. NIO is still making higher lows, even from here, whereas the Hang Seng was making lower lows. So it's relatively the sell-off in comparison to most of the market. It's actually doing quite well. BABA, actually, we won't do it like that. We'll add BABA onto the list here. So when you put BABA in there, you can see relative strength in reference to BABA. And even JD. Oh, no. Sorry, I did that wrong. JD. Actually, JD surprisingly also doing well. So it got a beating. It took a beating, and it looks like JD is now it's time for JD to kind of JD looked great. And I would look to see JD being one of the leaders next week. But if you look at KWeb's making lower lows. Well, I did that backwards. I needed to do NIO and then compare it to KWeb. and you can see it's just doing really, really well. So overall, my thesis is that I can see it come down as low as 522 potentially next week. I think you're like damn near a bottom. I'm calling it. Like this has got to be bottom. This has got to be bottom or near bottom. You might see that one last wick down here, 522, and then you get that big bounce into 580, 590. And then we finish off. This would be the head. That's the left shoulder. And I think it'll possibly build this right shoulder, and off it goes. You're going to get the inverted head and shoulders. And it did it right here, actually. I mean, it's a messy one. Left shoulder, the head, and right shoulder. I mean, I don't know if you can call that, but it's a really messy looking type of one. And I think same thing is playing out here in a similar fashion. But yeah, that's it. That's all. I apologize for getting political. I think it was and talking about Iran and USA. If I offended anybody on, because it's it's a very polarizing topic. People get very passionate and share different views. I wanted to just share my opinion on it, and hopefully, I didn't offend anybody. I felt it was relative. It was part of my, it's in all of our lives in our world, and whether you're watching the news or not, it impacts all of us. So I wanted to kind of give my 2 cents on that, as well as with NIO. But that's it. It's Saturday. I'm excited for Monday. I do believe we're going to actually see some green. It's going to be a green next week. And we're going to actually push. I think next week, Mike, I think we're going to actually revisit 580, 590. I want to see it kind of get right back up there. That's what I want to do. And then we'll revisit that next week and see where we are. That is it. That is all. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to smash the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button. If you got any questions, leave it in the comment section below. And if you want to join the conversation and be a part of the community for the NIO community, please join. There's a ton of people in the NIO community there that are, freely discuss and talk about many things, including NIO. The link is in the description below. Thank you guys and have a wonderful day. Cheers.